Hello, everybody. This is Giancarlo Aulino reporting for Vibe 105 with a sports Vibe Talk segment where we're going to be talking about all things Toronto Raptors and NBA basketball. To help me out today, I'm happy to be joined by my guest. He is the founder and CEO of On Point Basketball, Drew Ebanks. How you doing, Drew?
I'm doing good, Giancarlo. Doing amazing, man.
That's good. Drew, recently the Toronto Raptors unveiled their banner. The players got their rings. Everything is looking good. For someone like yourself who's covered this team during the not-so-good times and now for the great times like we saw last year, what was that moment like for you?
Oh, man. I really am still pinching myself, Giancarlo. I been involved in basketball for a long time. I remember when we had the World Basketball Championships here. I remember when the Raptors were playing in Skydome, as it was called then, now the Rogers Center. I remember the times when I could only get NBA basketball on essentially one highlight show, and we would be hitting our bikes hard to get home to watch the highlight show to catch some NBA action. And so to see a team and, picking the name of the team and then having the team that first year, a lot of losses, of course. Obviously they beat the Bulls. They had some big wins, and they had some tough losses in the playoffs over the years. But to see finally after 24 years, especially what the team has been building over the last several years, being one of the top teams record-wise and culture-wise and organization and managerial-wise in the NBA, and to see that culminate in a championship, Masai Ujiri, I always say he walks on water. This man can do no wrong. And to bring Canada its first NBA championship, and the first one obviously outside of the States. They're still bitter down in the States because the NBA championship is in another country. I had some Twitter battles with them. A lot of Americans, some friends, some foes down there. Didn't seem too happy for us. But you know what I always say, man, we aren't taking it back. It's ours. Nobody can take it away. And even when they say, Raptors played against an injured team, I go back and I say, hey, look at some of those Golden State teams playing against the injured Cavs teams, injured Kawhi Leonard as well, injured, for the Spurs back then, by them, actually. So you play who you got to play, GC. You play who's in front of you, and a win is a win, and there's nothing that can, in my opinion, that can tarnish it.
Yeah, you brought up the Raptors at Skydome, beating the legendary Bulls team that lost 10 games that year. They've had a lot of moments where they could have also went the other way, the route of the Vancouver Grizzlies, where they end up being relocated or not even existing anymore. What do you think was a hallmark moment where, okay, this team is going to stay in Toronto and it could work long term?
Well, I think you got to look at all those moments. I think Vince winning the dunk-off was a real watershed moment. I remember being down in Michigan watching my brother play Division II down there. My whole family was down there, and when he did some of those dunks, we were screaming, and it was and to the point where the hotel management had to come to the door and say, "Hey guys, can you keep it down?" But there was so much excitement for the franchise, just to have that happen was unbelievable. I think even when you look at, Chris Bosh being here, staying for a while, I think that was huge. Obviously, we know he eventually left, but a guy of his caliber for a long stretch of his career did believe that things would get turned around. I think a guy like DeMar DeRozan, you can't discount the fact that he wanted to be here, and not so much he only wanted to be here to play, but DeMar would be all over the city, GC, as far as, high school events, local events. I personally got to interview him, with Nike events, at Nike events, probably 2 or 3 times, and he was always so gracious with his time. So when you see guys like that, obviously we know there's always that misguided thing about, American players not wanting to be here. I think it's more a winning culture. Players will be here if it's a winning culture, and the organization is a stand-up organization, and that's what the Raptors have built. So to see a guy like DeMar DeRozan really be upset that he was traded and had to leave Toronto that shows that, I think that Toronto's here to stay. And it was obviously way before that when we knew Toronto was here to stay. But I think you got to give credit to Vince Carter for building that culture here, because if we didn't have Vince Carter, you never know. It could have ended up where the teams moved. I think with Vancouver, they didn't really have that, kind of gravitas with a star. Yeah. They had Big Country, but Big Country was probably not relatable to a lot of people, and he didn't really take the league by storm, So I think for Vancouver, unfortunately, they didn't have that, and I think maybe some of the management decisions they made were not conducive for them staying, and possibly maybe the league could have done a better job to make sure to keep them there. But yeah, the Raptors, I still think, like I said, people still almost can't believe the Raptors are NBA champions.
And Drew, with your work at On Point Basketball, you're at all these events. You get to see some of the up-and-coming Canadian talents at these youth, high school and prep school events. Very competitive culture down there. How would you say the NBA championship has maybe changed the perception or even quality of play in some of these leagues?
The perception, obviously, now is going to be a lot different. NBA champions, I think a lot of the world got to see the city of Toronto and what the city was all about, the diversity. It's one of the biggest cities in North America, one of the largest media markets in North America. So the exposure has always been here. Just people did not know how big of a city it is, what, third or fourth largest in North America as well. So, people got to see that. Now, our young talent, we have a couple prep leagues here in Canada, one that's national and one that's Ontario-based. And that is serving a great purpose to keep a lot of the top talent here. Obviously, guys like RJ Barrett and a few of the other, tops will end up going to, say, prep school in the States. But a lot of the, not even second tier, but just below the RJ Barrett levels are deciding to stay here for, most of their career. You look at a guy like AJ Lawson, who's going into his second year, his sophomore year at South Carolina. I mean, he had a fantastic career up here. The coaches are coming here now. They're coming up. I mean, I've personally spoken to guys like Tom Izzo, and he's been up here several times, and just like they're amazed at the amount of talent in these prep leagues and the high school. And you also have to look at the burgeoning, just like AAU and rep leagues. Leagues, such as like the CYBL, the Signature League, Hoop City League, the Phoenix League. Like, there's a bunch of these leagues that start playing in the fall and go into the spring here in the GTA, the Greater Toronto Area, and those are burgeoning with talent right now. So it's so good to see. A lot of times the kids would just be gone. I mean, certain level of kids, they're all gone. Now they've got two viable prep leagues to play in, and the exposure level's there. The media's there. You even had a couple weeks ago at one of the events over at Humber College, the OSBA event, that major media was there. The TSNs were there. The City TV. Yeah, all the networks are there. So it's changing, I think. And another thing that was great about that is at the same time they had a women's side of the draw as well. And both sides of the courts, they had stands set up for both the guys' side and the women's. Both sides for the women's were packed as well. Obviously, we have a team like Crestwood Prep who's just taking the country by storm right now. So I remember not only a few years ago, GC, where there was not a lot of people willing to sit down and watch girls basketball, which was a shame. We were covering it, but the interest now has just skyrocketed.
Yeah, that's great to hear. For those just joining us on Vibe 105, we're speaking with Drew Ebanks of On Point Basketball. Drew, you brought up RJ Barrett. You're very familiar with him. Your documentary on him is on YouTube. For those unfamiliar with what he brings to an NBA team, what are the Knicks getting in RJ Barrett, and what can fans here in Canada expect to see?
Well, the Knicks are getting a player I know very well, having played high school basketball with his father, Rowan Sr., I know what kind of competitor his father was, and I know that same competitive spirit has moved on to RJ Barrett. He does not like to lose. He's a competitor. He's going to bring it every single night. And there's a lot of people who had doubts about RJ going to New York, the pressure of the Big Apple, but his mom is from New York. His dad played college basketball at St. John's in New York. So he's been there in that city, and he understands with the Knicks the demands of the fans. One thing you're never going to have to worry about with RJ is his effort. You're not going to have to worry about if he's there to win the game. He's not going to have any ulterior motives, and he's going to carry himself in a respectful manner and listen to his coaches as well and follow the game plan. So I think for the Knicks, they got a gem. I know they were hoping to get Zion in the draft, number one, or they were hoping to do something there or flip it or do whatever, but it just didn't work out. But I don't think there's much of a let-off, to be honest with you, to get RJ. I think what they are getting is someone that can distribute the ball. He's going to improve his shot to where that's probably going to be automatic from the outside, and he can also get to the 10 to score when he needs to. So I think his versatility, essentially being like a point forward, I think is going to serve the Knicks very well. And they have some great talent there as well. Even a guy like Julius Randle, who's kind of been pushed around a little bit, kind of not really respected. I think they have some young talent there, that's going to kind of blossom in New York. I think they still have to be a little bit patient. They are young, and maybe they can bring in one or two vets over the next couple of years to solidify the young roster.
Yeah, and also with New York, we've heard it in the past with the media over there, could be toxic for some players that have been in and around the Knicks organization, even past players talking about the importance of playing in that market like Patrick Ewing.
Yep.
How important will it be for RJ to even develop that where, okay, the fans are going to be patient for the time being, but we know that, okay, eventually the time will come where they'll be impatient and they'll start expecting more things from him. He'll start to shoulder more of the blame. Does he have what it takes to handle that right away, or do you think he needs another veteran presence in the room?
No, he'll be fine. He's already been schooled. He's already been groomed for this. His father, as I mentioned, has been an integral part in his career, shaping what you see and the outside product. He's very clean cut. He's very respectful. He speaks well. He looks, plays the part. He's got a chip on his shoulder, which you need, but it's a respectful chip. He's not going to be out there disrespecting guys. He's going to play hard. So he's ready for this. He's groomed for this New York state of mind, and I just hope they can get some parts, there and a lot of talent there because New York's been starved, GC. Brooklyn now probably, has the better team, especially when KD comes back and now Kyrie Irving, but I'll tell you, there's nothing. They're kind of propping up the Nets now. Everybody's talking about the Nets, but there's nothing like having a good basketball team and success as a New York Knick. Like the whole, New York metropolitan area would be absolutely on fire once, if and when the Knicks turn it around and become a good team. So RJ's going to have no problem there. He's well spoken with the media. He's not shy to speak to the media, speaks very well. So I think he's born for this, man. So it's going to be great to see. I think they need to focus defensively to be a better defensive team. If they can be a better defensive team, I think they have weapons on offense that can get it done. But as usual for young teams, if they don't have the handle on the defense, which can be tough, the NBA, the guys on offense that you're playing against are all incredible scorers and all incredible playmakers. So for them, defense has to be the focus, rebounding, and then, let the young guys fly, man, and get them up and down the court and see what can happen.
Yeah, and you brought up the Brooklyn Nets. This summer was probably one of the craziest that we've seen in the NBA. All the stars moving around the league. Russell Westbrook traded to Houston.
Hi.
Yeah, Kawhi. You don't have that super team now with Kawhi tearing that up by signing with the Clippers instead of the Lakers. So do you think that the league is at the healthiest it's ever been? Or, do they need that super team where they can market around the world?
Well, the league is always in the news, GC. One thing about the NBA, it never stops. There's always something happening, whether it's during the season, whether it's the trade deadline, whether it's playoff time, the NBA Finals time, then you come to free agency period, then you come to summer league, and it's just like it's a 24/7, 365 business. NBA Twitter, as you know, is always alive and kicking. People's opinions, commentary, articles, just social media. It never ends for the NBA. So, and it's so popular. The ironic thing is the whole situation with China there coming in now when everything was going so well. They're going to have to navigate that now because it's about a $4 billion, I think between $4 and $5 billion out of, that they get either revenue or income from China. So it's going to be a tightrope to kind of figure out how they can continue to push the game in China, but also, the deal with the politics and the things that are going on there, good and bad that they're going to have to deal with. So the NBA, I think, is the best league as far as social media, as far as you see the guys coming in, walk in, and what they're wearing, all the drip and the gear and the kicks. They just do an incredible job of marketing their players. And it's easier, right? You look at a hockey or football, the players have helmets on, right? You look at basketball, and, you can see them, you can feel them, you can almost touch them on the court. So huge advantage for basketball there to grow their brand.
Once again, for those just joining us on Vibe 105, this is Giancarlo Aulino with a Sports Vibe Talk segment. We're joined by Drew Ebanks of On Point Basketball. Drew, just to shift gears a little bit, because one of the stars who unfortunately hasn't been given another chance is Carmelo Anthony. Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson came out recently and basically said he's been blackballed by the league. Just what are your thoughts on the whole controversy he seems to have, and do you think Carmelo Anthony can still play in the NBA?
Yeah, I really do. I think he's big enough, he's strong enough, he can still shoot, to get it done. I don't know what the deal is with why no one wants to give him a shot. I don't know if it was when a few years ago maybe he said he didn't want to come off the bench, and that soured people. Not even sure 100% that was even said, but Carmelo's not really getting a chance to show. I mean, when you bring in Joe Johnson back out of retirement and give him a shot with the Pistons, right?
Yeah.
And you don't give Melo a shot, you got to kind of question at least, and even with him being on, what was the last team? It was Houston, right? Or
was 9 games.
Yeah, 9 games with Houston, and that was it. Before that, it was OKC.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened there. Like, the fact that they may have lost a few games at the beginning, for me, it looked like they didn't give him the long enough leash. They didn't give the team a long enough leash to say, hey, do we have something here? So there had to be something that precipitated that quick, separation from each other at that time. So it's kind of sad to see. I mean, you look at LeBron still playing. You look at Wade just finished. Unfortunately, Bosch, with his pulmonary embolism, his blood clots, had to stop playing, but he probably would have been playing. So, it's sad to see a guy of his stature not getting a shot. I mean, what does he do? Does he maybe go and play overseas somewhere and still play for the love of the game? And any other country where he signs, maybe China or, any of the other top countries in basketball, he's going to get paid a lot. Would that be an opportunity for him to prove he could still play and then a team take a chance on him? That might be the route he might have to go if he still wants to play this sport. So for Melo, I think he's got to make a choice up. Is he going to try to play anywhere? Because it doesn't look like it's going to happen in the NBA. And if he does end up playing somewhere, that could be the opportunity where a team says, man, he actually still got it.
Would the big three maybe have to be an option for him? Because Joe Johnson recently got an opportunity but ended up being cut by Detroit. Would Carmelo Anthony even benefit from a big three stint?
I think so, but I really think he's too good right now for the Knicks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't think his physicality, it's not like he had like a bad knee injury or an Achilles, and he's kind of half hobbling, like he's not himself. I don't see anything from watching the summer workouts, him getting way up on the shot, him being able to fake and go to the hoop. I don't see anything that says Carmelo Anthony can't play the game. So it's just baffling to me, that this has happened to a guy of that stature. But it's tough. It's got to be tough on him, no doubt. But Big Three, I love what they're doing. They were here last year, I believe it was 2018, the summer of 2018. We went to check it out. Not a lot of great advertising for it here in Canada. I think they thought maybe just because it was Big Three, a lot of people would just show up. But I don't think people really even knew it was coming here. So if they are going to come back for one of the stops, I think they need to really do a push on the media and marketing to get people out, because the quality of play is really good. And you have some guys who barely have been out of the league a few years and doing work. So I think for Joe Johnson, it was close. I mean, he was, I think, the last cut. It was between him and one other player, and they went with the younger player, I think, in this instance, and cut Joe Johnson. But look at how even the Big Three is proving to be a proving ground for players to possibly get back in the NBA. As for Carmelo, I think he would be too dominant, I think, right now, if he went there direct. But you never know. It might be an option for him.
Yeah, I agree there, Drew. Before we wrap up here and let you go, how can our listeners check you out on social media? And you also have a show on the Barn Burner Network. How can they follow you and stay up to date with On Point Basketball?
Yeah, you can check us out at onpointbasketball.com. Working on possibly having a new website soon. At On Point Basketball on Instagram, at Drew Ebanks on Twitter as well. You can check us out there. Yeah, we do have our weekly show on Wednesdays. That is on Barn Burner and K Buena, and also our Ballin' podcast, which our show's called Ballin' as well. We'll be back talking NBA, talking Canada basketball, everything Canadian basketball on the Ballin' podcast. So watch out. We got a few things in store, developing a few video segments that are going to be pretty dope, pretty new concepts for sports and for hoops. So watch out for that. And we have a big event coming up in the beginning of December, high school event that's going to be one of the best Toronto has ever produced. So stay tuned for more information. Make sure you check us out at On Point Basketball on the gram.
Yeah, I highly recommend that follow. Drew, I'd like to thank you for sharing your time and coming on Vibe 105 to talk basketball with me, and I wish you all the best.
Thanks, Giancarlo. Appreciate it. And you guys keep up the great work at Vibe 105.
Thanks a lot. That was Drew Ebanks of On Point Basketball. Now we're going to send it back to the studio for more programming right here on Vibe 105.
And now back to your Vibe 105.
This is Drew Ebanks of On Point Basketball, and you're listening to Vibe 105.
We the North are now we the champions, the Raptors, the 2019 NBA champs.
With the third pick in the 2019 NBA draft, the New York Knicks select RJ Barrett.
On point, always on location.
Vibe 105.